recognized symbol of excellence in sports entertainment.
Hello and welcome to the Arn Show. This is Paul Bromwell, and I am joined by none other than the founder of the Four Horsemen, the creator of the Spine Buster, the Hall of Famer, and the man who helped make an eggplant one of the hottest baby faces in Jim Crockett Promotions in 1988. He's the enforcer. He's Double A. He's Arn Anderson. Arn, how are you this week?
I like that shirt. Where'd you get that shirt?
Oh, man, I got on Box of Gimmicks.
Box of Gimmicks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
The enforcer. Yeah.
Very nice. Different color.
Yeah, I like the color too and all of it, man. So
all right. I have to get one of those.
Yeah, hey, listen, you know, this seems like the quintessential Arn Anderson color. I mean, it matched the red leather, you know, kind of reminds me of the red leather championship TV title that you held. So, yeah, I'm digging it.
Yeah, we can make that work.
Well, listen, Arn, speaking of eggplant, last week we talked about the effort Jim Crockett made in turning Lex Luger into an imposing babyface. Lex worked every night with some combination of the Horsemen, be that you, Tully, and Rick, with the end goal of getting him ready for the Nature Boy. But this month, we're going to take a look at the continued push of Luger on our way to Clash of the Champions 1. And of course, none of this was possible without the Horsemen. Arn, are you ready? Because we're about to go on a trip down memory lane to talk through how Jim Crockett arrived at the inaugural Clash of the Champions.
Which was a big event going forward for a long, long time. Look forward to it. Let's do it.
All right, here we go. So we're going to open the month of March on the 1st in the heart of Horseman Country, Greenwood, South Carolina at the Civic Center, as you and Telly took on Barry Windham and Lex Luger. On the same card, world champion Ric Flair took on Sting. And remember these matches because we're going to see him again. Then on March 2nd, Jim Crockett recorded television from the TBS studios on an episode that would air on March 5th of World Championship Wrestling. And at the TV taping, the Horsemen were in action in a six-man tag team match taking on Mike Jackson, Trent Knight, and Rocky King. The Horsemen would pick up the W and close out the show with a fun ringside interview conducted by none other than David Crockett. We got the finish, and we got the interview. Let's take a look.
An awesome team. I'm just a real fan of the Horsemen. Well, right to the base of the spine. And if that wasn't enough, he picks Trent Knight up by the hair and tags in Arn Anderson, the enforcer. And one spine buster to another. Awesome. This is just basically almost like a tune-up for the Four Horsemen. You got three champions of the world. There's the main man. 5 times he has held the most coveted title that the sport has. And right there's the figure 4. And if he gets this on Sting, can Sting escape? But if Sting gets the Scorpion, what can Ric Flair do? That's the big question. But right now, there's no doubt. The Four Horsemen are victorious once again here on TBS. There they are. There's their symbol. And we're going to take a look one more time. The champion parading around the ring for a little bit. And then grabs a fallen Trent Knight, an already beaten man Trent Knight. Hooks it in, and Jim Rush, you talked about Scorpion or figure 4. There's no doubt. Both are awesome moves. That's the big question. What will Flair do if the Scorpion's locked in? And what can Sting do if Flair gets the figure 4 on him? There'll be a championship in the balance, and David Crockett is standing at ringside with the 3 world champions, the Four Horsemen. They're the Four Horsemen. They're the champions of the world. J.J. Dillon is their manager.
What I hear in the back is a very subtle chant. Sting, Sting, Sting. I think anybody in the right mind would be a little embarrassed at this moment, because it's obvious that you just had a demonstration of how the figure 4 leg lock should be properly applied by the man that's the true master of it, the world heavyweight champion himself. And I'd put any sum of money on the line to say that once that figure 4 leg lock is locked in on anybody, including this loudmouth Sting, you don't get out of it. The match is over now. Oh, what do we have here, champ? What I got here is Dusty Rhodes. Right there. This is Dusty Rhodes, #1 Joe. Tell him one time, sweetheart. Tell him one time.
Well, there we go. That's enough of that clip. But I tell you what, we had Flair with the comedy spot there at the end. But I would be remiss if I didn't point out how good James J. Dillon is on the mic.
As good as anybody. Can't stress it enough. He's such an intelligent, articulate guy, and he follows the angles, and he knows exactly what to talk about and what to punch, and he's great, man.
Yeah, and it's all the big build-up. They're already starting to push Flair, Sting. They're starting to talk about you guys with Luger and Windham, and we're all getting ready to push that big card there for Clash of the Champions. But before we get there, we're on to March 4th. We're in Pittsburgh at the Civic Arena. It's 3,000 people. You and Telly are in the semi-main event of the card, wrestling Luger and Ole. And this match would end in a disqualification. And for his part, Flair defeated Sting at the Sam Houston Coliseum in front of 3,000 fans as they continued their program. We then move along to March 5th, and there would be a taping of Worldwide that aired. Luger and Ole defeated Tully and Rick in a steel cage. When Luger pinned Tully with a roll-up, you and JJ, though, are conspicuously at ringside for this one. We have the closing moments, Arn, of this one, and we're going to pick up the match with about 3 minutes left. Let's check this one out together here.
He's trying to fight it.
You know, David, right now, Ole Anderson is as much pain as he's been in a long time. Arn Anderson has appeared at ringside. He can't do anything because of the cage, but now Ole's trying to turn things around.
Too close to the left side.
Yeah, Flair made a tag, too, which was a great position to be in. And there's Arn Anderson, James J. Dillon. Look at The Rock. He can battle back from anything, can he?
Oh, yes. He has desire.
The great equalizer.
Bringing down his size. This is a great equalizer right here. Lex taking both men on. Picks him up. Boy, he gets psyched up.
Luger is really pumped up.
Scoop. Has a slam. Look around. Come on. Get him if you want to. You got to do it now.
You're right. Got to keep the pace up.
All right, get up. Hook his leg. Had to watch out for Rick.
The only thing Flair could do right there.
Oh, now catches him. Ole's fighting him. They go up. Les comes over. Goes behind him. Has him down for the pin. He got it. The winners. Ole Anderson, Lex Luger. Here comes Arn. Arn's coming in. He gets on. JJ's in there too.
Arn's the freshman. Oh, and they're stomping away now. They have Ole. JJ's got Ole. While Flair has Luger down, as you can see on the map.
Telly goes over, stop. They take Ole now. Arn
So, Arn, listen, that was good stuff. You hop in the cage, and the Horsemen commence the beatdown with a numbers game. We see Dusty come in to make the save. But I got to ask, you know the Horsemen and Dusty were dance partners for a long time. You guys made a shitload of money together. But wouldn't it helped, or didn't you think it would have been nice to see Sting kind of run down and make that save, since the build is supposed to be for him and Flair, and they're trying to push him as maybe that next guy in line? What are your thoughts on that?
Depends on, number one, was he there? Number two, it just depends on where they're at, and we'll see as the month goes forward how involved Sting actually was. That's the one thing about it. You didn't have to have everybody that was involved in an angle all in there every night. If you did do that, I would venture to say might get old.
Yeah, I just didn't know if it was Dusty's kind of way of saying, hey, I'm still the man. I'm still booking. I'm going out there and doing my thing. And you know the crowd's going to love every minute of it. Or it could have been an opportunity to say, hey, with the impending feud of Sting, Flair, and the build we're trying to do, maybe it's a nice spot to have him come out and save the day. Regardless, it didn't happen. But I was just curious your thoughts on that.
It's going to happen in the future.
It will.
The near future, right? Big
Yeah.
time. You're going to be hard pressed because you're going to hear a lot of people that are going to say Dusty finish, or was Dusty pushing himself and all this. The answer is yes, but the answer is also this. When you're the biggest star in that locker room and you're selling tickets, and it doesn't matter who your opponent basically is, any one of us, as long as you had a good heel, or you had the Midnight Express, or you had a top heel for Dusty to work with, he's going to draw money. You're never going to hear me say, well, was he stealing the spotlight? Yeah, but he was also the guy that every night was bleeding, and every match I was in with him, he helped make me, because I was a young guy that was just getting settled in the business, and him having competitive matches with me helped make my career. And that's the way I'll always stand by it. Yes, it was a spot for him to shine temporarily, but that's okay.
There you go. Well, Arn, makes total sense. The same day, Jim Crockett Promotions recorded television at the Convention Center in Louisville, Kentucky, the home of Jim Cornette. You and Telly compete in a quick match where you hit the spine buster, and Telly picked up the victory with a slingshot suplex. And then later that night, because of course you did, in St. Louis, Missouri, you and Telly wrestled Barry and Luger in a losing effort when you and Telly were DQ'd. And then you're back to Greenville, March 7th. Luger and Windham would pick up a win against Tully and JJ. Yes, JJ Dillon. JJ traded the loafers for the wrestling boots that night, substituting for you, believe it or not. Any memory, any clue? I know this is a long, long time ago as to why you wouldn't have made this one and they would have thrown JJ in with Tully.
How could I have missed that one in my mind? Who were the opponents?
It was against Luger and Windham.
I don't remember it. I wish I did.
Yeah, just an interesting nugget there that I found as I was going through my research that Dillon entered the ring there. So there you go.
Huh.
Yep. Hey, he was hot on the mic around this time, so maybe it was time they wanted him to get his ass in the ring and get roughed up a little bit and get his comeuppance.
Hey,
but
and listen, when JJ, not to interrupt you, when JJ was a wrestler before he became a manager, he took textbook bumps.
Yeah.
He was a good hand. It wasn't like he was not good and then he became a manager. He took great bumps.
Yeah, everybody will always remember him for the bump in the cage in the War Games with the shoulder, but he did more than that in wrestling.
Oh, no, that's not the one I'm talking about. I'm talking about before he ever became
a
manager, when he was just a wrestler.
Yeah.
Starting his career, everybody, the old timers always said JJ took textbook bumps.
He was a bump machine. There you go.
Yep.
2 days later, March 9th, Jim Crockett Promotions was back in the TBS studios in Atlanta for a matinee recording of World Championship Wrestling that would air 3 days later on March 12th. You and Telly worked a match against Atkinson and Spearman. The match was long enough that it gave JR the opportunity, man, JR was so good, to really sell how dangerous you and Telly were, as well as talk about the upcoming encounter with Luger and Windham. In addition, you and Telly were able to show off your in-ring work. Following the victory, the Horsemen took the microphone with some very pointed comments. Here's the end of that match, Arn, and what you gentlemen had to say. This should be good.
Man, I'll tell you something.
We're ahead on points. We're ahead on riding time.
As I've said before, people think Luger and Windham are going to be the next tag team champions, and that may be so. But ladies and gentlemen, they got to beat the best team in wrestling to get it done. That's the key thing. They've got to beat Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard. And can they do it? That's what remains to be seen. Well, as in every walk of life, you have your good days and your bad days. Lex Luger, Barry and Windham are going to have an exceptionally good day and be really on their game to beat these two. Tully and Arn with JJ by wireless microphone being able to hear his comments.
Great match, guys. Great match.
And it was a great match for the Horsemen. We'll take another look at the slingshot suplex from Tully Blanchard. As Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson, no doubt, have controlled this match from its outset. They are gearing up for Barry Windham and Lex Luger. The World Tag Team Champions have never looked better. And ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back. And we will hear David Crockett's comments with the Tag Team Champions of the World right after this very brief timeout.
There it is, the clash.
It's at an odd time, 4 p.m. Eastern, isn't it?
Isn't it? Yeah.
Tully Blanchard.
You know, David Crockett, everybody out there, they know baseball players have spring training. You have football teams, they got mini camps they go to hone their skills. Well, that's exactly what that match was. We could have took those guys and beat them in 30 seconds, 2 minutes, but JJ wanted us to play with them a little bit, to hone our skills. That's something that Luger, you, Windham, all the rest of the tag teams don't do. You don't hone the skills. You don't master your craft. That's why we are the Horsemen. That's why we can come out here week in and week out and parade these, because we have mastered our craft. We hone our skills, and we honed them a little bit better. You saw two guys trying to make a name for themselves coming out here on TBS, the Superstation, against Arn and myself, the world's tag team champions, and we took them apart like so many nuts and bolts.
Arn?
I couldn't have said it better, but David Crockett, first of all, we are proud to represent the NWA. We're proud, second of all, maybe even first of all, to represent your company. I'm talking Jim Crockett Promotions. By being the World Tag Team Champions, it very states very easily we are the best at what we do. You didn't hear any music. You didn't see any face paint. You don't see any glitter. What you see is plain boots and plain tights. And what you also saw was plain wrestling, which is on the marquee. These days, our business gets glamorized by different aspects and different people. That some of them like to call it showbiz. A lot of people like to think they're stars. But Tully and myself, Ric Flair, James J. Dillon, know that stars are in the sky and stars are in Hollywood. What we are is professional athletes. And every time we come to a building, you got to know, your brothers got to know, those people that have watched us for a lot of years got to know. That's the reason they keep coming back. And last but not least, we got to know that whether we're sick, whether we're hurting a little bit, whether we got problems at home or we had problems making our plane, that we give you 110% because that's what you paid for. And irregardless of what you think, Luger, these people that buy these tickets don't pay our salary. His brother, and he does, and they pay us real well because we're worth every nickel. And when you look in these eyes and you look at that match that just take place, you see a little Anderson fire coming back because that's my roots. I was learned it. I was taught the old way. It is take a body part and render it useless. And my friend, a three-legged table is worth nothing to anybody. So in the Crockett Cup, that 20-inch arm of yours, Luger, can be just as useless as the one we just showed you. We are the best. We are the Horsemen.
That's right, and they are the world.
Arn, your intensity when you get rolling is hard to beat, my friend. My goodness. You got the sweat and the spittle, and it's just hard not to take everything you said seriously. Amazing, sir. It's just simply amazing.
Thank you. I can talk a good fight anyway.
You can, my goodness. So good. Another fantastic promo. What did you think of it?
Pretty much just self-promoting. You know, it's a hell of a note when you're the World Tag Team Champions and you still have to go out and reinforce that you're the best team, because that's how much talent was in Jim Crockett Promotions. Stars
are in the sky, and in Hollywood, we're professional wrestlers. Man, Where did you come up with this stuff?
I don't know.
I mean, just off the cuff, or driving around in the car and thinking of stuff, or?
Well, some of it, yeah, but mostly, I mean, we didn't sit in the back and go, okay, you're going to go first, I'll go second, you go third, you take 30 seconds. It was never like that. One of us, whoever had the match that was coming up that was the biggest, I think, we just knew to let that person start, and if he took the whole promo, he did. It was just being a professional and knowing that time was very, very valuable on that television show. And if you took it all, you better pay it off.
But you knew if that mic came over to you, you were ready to go. You had something in your back pocket that you had already thought through. You were ready to go, so that if your number was called, you're ready to do your thing.
Always.
Whew. Good stuff. My goodness. Well, we move on. It's Baltimore, Maryland. We talked about it before. A great venue for Jim Crockett Promotions. It's March 10th. It's Barry Windham and Luger defeating you and Telly again by DQ. 2 days later, March 12th, back in Norfolk at the Scope, Jim Crockett would record television and you and Telly would wrestle. Barry and Lex again. You guys are really working a lot together, gearing up for Clash. This time, you're coming out on top. And then on an episode of NWA Pro that aired that day, you and Telly defeat a couple of enhancement talents, and then alongside JJ conduct an interview where you begin to talk about the build to the Jim Crockett Memorial Tag Team Tournament, because that's just around the corner. And we have the clip of that interview. Here we go.
Fans, you saw them in the ring. Here they are, the World Tag Team Champions and the inspirational leader of the Horsemen, James J. Dillon.
Well, Bob, as we're all aware, the Jim Crockett Senior Memorial Cup is fast approaching, and it's getting to the point now where we're all very cognizant of what the seating procedure is going to be. And the precedent has been set in the past that the reigning World Tag Team Champions, which of course at this time are two members of the Four Horsemen, Mr. Blanchard and Mr. Arn Anderson, would therefore be seated in the #1 spot. So aside from the prestige of holding the titles, aside from the monetary gains, the $1 million prize money from the Crockett Cup, we want to hold on to the world titles. We want to hold on to that #1 seating.
What about it, Telly?
JJ, I tell you, it's a historic thing. It's an annual thing, the Jim Crockett Senior Memorial Cup. The thing is, you got to be lucky to get through the great caliber of competition. But you know, to be lucky and be good at the same time, you got to have it up here. It ain't just being big and bad. You know, Jim Ross want to talk about, well, if Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard wrestle with Warlord and the Barbarian. Well, they're big and bad and tough, but you got to catch it. And when you get tired and then big arms start hanging down real low, then we turn and we attack. And that's just the way it is. It's got brains, just like the Road Warriors and the rest. That's why we have these and the great big muscled up guys don't. That's because we're the best tag team. We can come out here and say it on national television. We're the best because we got these. Right, Double A? That's exactly right, Bob Cottle. As you hear these people chanting, only Windham, Luger. This is what they think is going to give them the edge in the cup, or as the bottom line, any match across this country. For Windham, Luger, you pride yourself as being the young lions. They call them the Twin Towers. Well, gentlemen, we are the incumbents. Do you realize how hard it is to unseat the incumbents? The winners of the Jim Crockett Memorial Cup will be the team that reaches down. They're going to have to win 4 times. That means they got to beat Rhodes and Nikita, maybe. Maybe the Superpowers. Maybe the Midnights. Maybe Luger and Windham. Well, Luger, at any point in time, maybe you feel like the grudge is over. We feel like it's just begun because our reputation is on the line anytime we step in an arena.
All right, fans, the total package when we come back right after this timeout.
Arn, the message is clear, my friend. Come and beat the Horsemen if we let you. My goodness, another stellar promo. You've said over and over again that the Horsemen were the standard of excellence, and clearly that's a fact. But how difficult for you personally was it to come out day after day and be intense and believable and be the Arn Anderson that we've all come to know and love?
Was it difficult because it's who I was? Was it playing a role? Was it playing wrestler? That's just who I was, and I believed every word I said on every promo that I ever did. And sometimes, whether you're right or wrong, and you end up having egg on your face, as long as you believe it, that's really all you can do. Because if you don't have faith in yourself and your ability and what you're saying, nobody else is going to believe in you either.
Well, we certainly believed every word you said, and you guys are not only ramped up for Clash, you're ramped up for the tournament. March 15th, we're at the middle of the month. Crockett's headed west to another venue we haven't spent a lot of time talking about, the Lawler Event Center in Reno, Nevada. And on that day, you and Telly would wrestle Barry and Luger once again. Any memories of Reno, Arn? I asked because I don't remember, again, Reno as a regular stop for Jim Crockett.
I think it might have been an in and out heading towards the coast.
Yeah.
You know, we'll have to see what.
You were. You were, because the next day you headed to the Civic Auditorium in San Francisco. So it must have just been, hey, let's do a quick hitter in Reno and then out to San Fran.
Yep, let's probably stop, do the show, gas up, and head on to Frisco.
Well, there you go. So you're in San Francisco. You're in front of 4,500 people. Windham and Luger defeat you and Telly by disqualification. And rounding out the loop in Inglewood at the Great Western Forum on March 17th, once again, Luger and Windham, you are getting your reps in with Luger and Windham. There is no doubt about it. And they defeat you by way of disqualification. So a lot of DQs here as well every time you guys faced off. Any thoughts on that?
Well, beating them wasn't the right thing to do, and they couldn't very well beat us because that would take all the steam off of us. Just us being able, in those days, being able to get out of there with the DQ to save our own skin had a lot of heat surrounding it. It wasn't like it is flat today. It would, you know, it worked if you did it the right way. And
yeah, crowd was into it. Crowd would definitely be into that back then for sure. March 18th at the Cincinnati Gardens, JCP records matches for TV there. That night, you and Tully win against Luger and Windham when the challengers are disqualified after Magnum TA interferes with his baseball bat. Then the next day, the 19th, you hit the UIC Pavilion in Chicago, and you get the night off, Arn. Well, figuratively, because you drew Barry Windham as your opponent in a match that saw you two fight to a double DQ. Just a reminder of how stacked JCP's roster was in 1998. Here's the rest of the card. Ready for this? Ivan Koloff pins Shane Douglas. Rick Steiner pins Kendall Windham. You have the NWA U.S. Tag Champs, Bobby Eaton and Stan Lane, defeating the Garvins, Jimmy and Ron Garvin, when Eaton pinned Jimmy Garvin. Lex Luger defeating Tully Blanchard. Dusty Rhodes defeating Mike Rotundo. You have world champ Ric Flair pinning Sting, and then the Road Warriors defeating the Powers of Payne in a lumberjack street fight. Arn, that's a hell of a lot of talent. I think that sometimes we as fans forget how deep that roster really was. I mean, we'll talk about it a little bit, just the amount of talent you guys had at your fingertips.
well, and that's how you were able to split them in half and run two shows. Because then you would fill in, you know, behind with your Brad Armstrongs and Tim Horners and guys that were tremendous performers, just weren't given the push and of some other guys. But still, they were, you know, from the first match to the last match, you had a lot of guys that were really tremendous performers, as well as, you know, some interesting gimmicks, the Jimmy Valiants, those type guys. So you could just sprinkle those guys in, and very interesting and very entertaining show.
You're talking Hall of Famers all throughout that list.
Oh, yeah.
You know, even with Jimmy Garvin, he's part of the Freebirds Hall of Famer, you know.
Sure.
You talk about Sting and you talk about Ric Flair and Dusty, and the list goes on and on. The Horsemen are all in there. Just an incredible card and lineup of talent. And we move on. It's March 19th. It's St. Louis. It's Luger and Windham once again challenge you and Tully for the tag team titles, winning, but again, by disqualification. The following day in Charleston, West Virginia, the matinee show saw Windham and Luger take on Tully and JJ, who was substituting for you again. Arn, this is twice in a month, and you never miss shows. Was this a creative decision? I asked because
I don't know where I would have been.
And you weren't involved in any other match here in West Virginia, so it's strange.
It is strange.
Yeah. Well, you're not injured, that's for sure, because you're definitely active. We're back in the TBS studios on March 23rd for a taping of World Championship Wrestling that would air on the 26th. The Horsemen turned the heat up. Magnum TA was interviewed by David Crockett. Tully appeared and reminded everyone of their I Quit match in '85. Barry runs out to protect Magnum, and Arn, all hell breaks loose. We have the angle here. Let's check it out.
And here he is, truly the boss, Magnum TA. Welcome, really. Well, thank you, David. You know, maybe it's time that I clear a few things up here. There's been a few discrepancies going on. People say a little controversy. Well, I say there's a whole lot of controversy because, you see, it wasn't so long ago that I came out here and tried to lend my expertise maybe to a little commentating here on TBS. And everybody took that opportunity to take their pot shots at me. So I had to move into a new adversity in life, maybe. I had to pick up a little bit of an equalizer, namely this baseball bat. Well, you know, that doesn't make me feel good because I don't like having to have an equalizer, but I make no minced words about the fact that I'm not 100% yet. I'm not ready to climb back in the ring, but that day will come. So, Telly, Blanchard, Arn, Anderson, I don't apologize for getting involved in a situation where it should have just been 4 men involved, but again and again, James J. Dillon has to put his 2 cents worth in. Well, I just merely put in my 2 cents worth, and then Telly Blanchard wanted the bat. Well, he wanted the bat. I gave him the bat, and it felt real good doing it. Because, you see, I'm no commentator. I'm no fancy Dan guy to dress up. The warrior still lives inside me. You know, Magnum, you and I go back a long, long way. You know, I know that they're selling videos of you and I in an I Quit match, and you love it. You're getting money off of me because something that didn't happen. I've had to live for 2 years with I Quit. I quit everywhere I go. I quit because of you. But you know, Magnum, I felt sorry for you. Poor Magnum, like everybody else. He got hurt, poor ended his career. Well, that's too bad. But you know, Magnum, when you start sticking your nose back in our business again, you stay out until you can crawl back in the ring. Then you start sticking your ring in. I don't care about equalizers. You want it back? Far enough. It's not far enough. You just want to.
Oh, my
God.
Arn, do you remember who some of these guys are in the suits? I don't recognize. Obviously, JJ.
Is it the Crockett's?
I recognize David and Tony, but there's some guys in suits that I'm like, who in the world? I never even. There's Jim Ross. Who's the guy in the back, bent over? His head was to us. I don't even know. Wow.
I think David Crockett was one of those guys.
David Crockett was one, but there was just that was insane.
And you wonder why they hate Tully Blanchard's gut? It's pretty stout.
Talk about heat. And Dusty makes the save. Obviously, he was Magnum's old tag partner. And the result of this, Arn, Dusty was suspended for 120 days. Sounds like, I don't know if something personal needed to be taken care of for Dusty and he or whatever, but he's suspended for 120 days. My goodness, attacking Magnum looking for heat. That was some serious heat, baby.
Yeah, I imagine as strong as you can get.
What did you think of that, watching that back? Do you even remember that? I don't even, I was hard to recall until I was putting them together. And I'm like, because, I mean, when I saw Magnum go down, I have not seen Magnum hit since the injury. And he kind of, it wasn't a big bump, but still, and being messed with.
Yeah, any bump was too big.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that was heavy duty.
That was some stuff.
Well, if you're just, I'm kind of watching that for the first time, I think.
Yeah.
It is. That's a heavy duty angle.
This is the reality and the realism that you got with Jim Crockett Promotions, and nothing articulates it or demonstrates it, should I say, more than what we just saw there. So here we are. It's Columbia, South Carolina on the 24th, trying to get back into what we're going on here after seeing that. You take on Kendall Windham, winning the match by pinfall. And the next time we see you is for the event we have been building towards, and that's Clash of the Champions. And I know you and Conrad and even me have spent some time talking about the brewing war between the WWF and Jim Crockett Promotions. On this day, a Sunday, by the way, Jim Crockett booked the Clash to run head-to-head with WrestleMania 4, which emanated from the Trump Plaza. The draw of that card was Hulk Andre 3, and as we all know, Macho Man won the tournament that night to become the WWF champion. So this is what you guys are competing against, Arn. Interestingly enough, the WWE booked the Omni for a closed-circuit viewing of the event. Wow. Now on to the Clash. It's in Greensboro, and why not? It's Horseman country, baby. This is Crockett country, and this is the NWA. 6,000 rabid fans came to the Coliseum that night to watch a 5-match card. And as an important reminder, the event was broadcast on TBS and was the first of its kind for Jim Crockett Promotions. You said it already, Arn. The first of many Clash of the Champions. This is a historic event. Now you have Battle of the Belts and for AEW. And Clash of the Champions, WWE has gone on to use. But before we get into some of this stuff, how cool of it is to see another kind of, I guess, Dusty Rhodes brainchild still have relevance all these years forward to this day.
Yeah, it was just the state of the business. It was a different industry back then, and people were involved mentally and spiritually almost. They would pull for these guys, and it's like Tully. I mean, how much heat is that attacking a guy
goodness.
like Magnum in that position? It was just.
I mean, let's be honest. He's disabled. He had a disability,
It's all about emotion.
It was.
That's what we were selling.
This thing had a big event feel. There's no doubt about it. And even though WrestleMania was happening, there was a lot of fans of Jim Crockett Promotions that couldn't wait. Maybe that's why the 4 p.m. Eastern start time, too. Arn, you get a little bit earlier start time. I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and look when WrestleMania 4 started, but maybe it's a possibility to say, hey, we're going to start a little bit earlier.
What town was that WrestleMania in? Was it West Coast or something?
I'd have to look to see what time WrestleMania started that year, but I know it was 4 p.m. Eastern for Clash of the Champions. Yeah. So it garnered a 5.8 cable rating, which is tremendous. We talk about cable ratings now.
Yeah.
On the card, you had television champion Mike Rotunda defeating Jimmy Garvin in an amateur wrestling match. You had the then U.S. Tag Team Champions, the Midnight Express, defeating the Fantastics. You got a dusty finish here where it appeared the Fantastics won, but then the decision was reversed. Lane and Eaton would beat the Fantastics with their belts afterwards, getting back any heat they may have lost. And then also on that card, you had a non-sanctioned, non-title, 6-man tag match. Dusty Rhodes and the Road Warriors defeating Ivan Koloff and the Powers of Payne. The ropes arm were wrapped in barbed wire, and the match was anything goes. So there you go. And then the main event of epic consequences for the man called Sting saw Sting and Flair go 45 minutes to a draw. This match effectively made Sting and gave him the credibility needed to become one of the most legitimate baby faces of all time. Arn, there had to be a lot of time, effort, and energy put into the program with Luger and the payoff for the part of this that's coming. But what did you think about Flair making Sting on this night after doing a solid 30, 45, and even 60 days with him on all the loops?
Well, it was his coming out party that night. He became someone different. And his cardio held up. His look was incredible. And being featured against Flair for the title was just the frosting on top of the cake. He had it all. I mean, he had a great look. That night, I feel like he really stepped up and became a top guy.
He certainly did, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, too, Arn, this is the show where you get Tony, Shivani, and Jim Ross commentating their first big event together, working together. JR still talks about it. Tony's talked about it on his podcast, together, play-by-play, and to see those guys, I know Tony, you know, he's your buddy, all these years later, still getting it done on AEW, but here it is, 1988, Clash 1, Tony and Jim Ross working together.
That was the beginning of something that to this day is awesome.
It is.
These guys are really pros, and they really do a great job of explaining what we're watching, and that's what great announcers do. They paint the picture. If you were just listening to the show, you'd still know what was going on without even seeing it.
How much does Tony Schiavone mean to you? He talks about, I don't know if you listen to his podcast, but he shares some funny stories about you, man.
Well, we're just good friends. And
yeah.
It's business, you know. You make some good friends along the way, but they're not a lot because you're on the road every day.
That's right.
You know? But Tony's one of those friends that we hit it off right away, and we've stayed friends over the years and floated like, back and forth between companies and passed and repassed, and just he's a great guy. Love him.
Yeah, I got to put his show over. What happened when he did a show with Lois lately, his wife. She turned 70 years old recently, and they did an episode together, and they shared a lot of memories of traveling and what it was like being a wrestling announcer's wife. And he shares a fun story about Arn as Shivani continued just to have child after child after child, and you came in and cracked some fun jokes. So I would say check that out if you're an Arn Anderson fan. You'll hear some fun stories there. Let's move on with the Clash as I digress. In the semi-main event, the reason we're here, it's Lex Luger and Barry Windham. After a month of DQ finishes and suspect losses, finally, the Horsemen lose, unfortunately, a pinfall loss, and they become the new tag team champions in the process. The match goes a little less than 10 minutes, but as you might expect, after working together for a solid month and a half, you guys have Lex as TV ready as possible, Arn. It certainly didn't hurt that Barry was his teammate. We had the closing moments of the match here, and arguably one of Luger's biggest career highlights, Arn. As we watch this together and listen to it together, just watch the crowd, my friend. Here we go.
Anderson reaching in, made the tag. Here comes the enforcer with a hard left hand. Stands up Windham in the neutral cutter, and now working on the gut. 3 times, he goes to the midsection. Right to the arm again, twisting on it. A 3rd time, and really putting the pressure to Barry Windham.
He didn't use his right hand one time, Tony. Everything was that big, heavy left hand. Kick out by Barry Windham.
JJ. Giving some direction now to Arn Anderson. Look at James. That is a concerned face. As much I've ever seen from James Lee.
The team that can keep their opponent from tagging the longest, I think might win this one. Plus, you got to consider the one big mistake. Nobody has made it. Ooh, both of them connected.
Windham falls also. I thought maybe Windham caught him first, but it was right at the same split second. The tag was made to Blanchard. Tully Blanchard with a slingshot. You can see it. Yes, he got it over. He thinks it's over. Here it is. The cover. No.
The people here cannot believe it. And quite frankly, neither can I.
Not many people can do that. What to do with him? He ducked him. But once again, so close in the corner, the tag is made. It's Luger to the other side. Elbow.
The total package is cooking here. He is working on double Arn Anderson. What is Bullseye? The heavyweight tag team championship of the world is on the line here.
Blanchard from the blind side. Luger got him. Luger has Anderson. Both men. Hands together. Anderson on his feet. He got a knee in. From where, I don't know. Luger to the other side. He got the tackle. Luger one more time. Blanchard caught him.
Blanchard buried the knee into the kidneys of Lex Luger. And the total package now is in trouble here.
A reversal. Power
slam. Luger looking to the fans. J.J. Dillon is very worried here at ringside. And well, it should be. Now, all 4 men are in. JJ's got a chair. He's got a chair. Oh, Anderson! Yes! We got new World Tag Team Champions! The Twin Towers have taken the roof off of the Greensboro Coliseum! A new era in tag team wrestling has just begun! Barry Windham and Lex Luger are the new tag team champions of the world!
Wow, you want to talk about explosion.
It's hard to argue with the reaction, right? It was a popular decision for sure.
You think? Yeah.
Lord.
The Greensboro was going crazy. I mean, so there you go. Arn, the slip up with the chair that ends and helps protect you and Tully, but there's no denying it was finally time for Windham and Luger to win the titles, as you said. Plus, now you and Telly get to be in the hot pursuit to get those belts back. And yeah, we have ready-made main event level matches for the next loop.
That's it. 100%. Once you do something, when it's time like that, you make a guy, and just like Sting was having his coming out party, there was Luger's coming out party. They went to a different level that night.
That's right. Stars were made, or should I say, as you said, stars are in the skies in Hollywood. But these guys were next level pro wrestlers after this night, and we're going to wind down the month now, Arn. I did want to ask about the show in Greenville, South Carolina, on March 28th, because on the show, you and Tully defeat Rocky King. And here he is again, John Savage, Barbarian's brother. This is the day after the Clash, and Rocky and Savage are substituting, forget this, Dusty Rhodes and Ole Anderson. That's a huge change to the card, considering the matches you guys have been having. No disrespect meant towards John Savage or Rocky King, but they simply don't have that star power as Ole and Dusty. Any recollection or thoughts as to why maybe a substitution like that was made?
Was this a TV taping?
It was.
So that would have been the one with Dusty, and them would have been for like a dark match.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, he was suspended for 120 days.
Yeah.
That's where he was, right?
Yeah. And it's interesting that you say that, because I guess the TV taping that was done where he was suspended would have been aired post Clash of the Champions. So, because he was at the Clash of the Champions as well on that 6-man. So they're making sure all the storylines fit for sure.
Even though the people were let down, there was at least a story that backed it up.
That's right. Well, in Columbia the next day, you pinned Kendall Windham in the main event of the show. Tully lost to Luger even after JJ's interference. And then you finished off the month, March 31st, in Spartanburg at the Memorial Auditorium. Jim Crockett taped the main event that would not air until April. And on this show, Rick, Telly, and you defeated Sting, Luger, and Windham in 13 minutes after Blanchard repeatedly punched Barry in the face with a foreign object thrown into the ring by, of course, James J. Dillon. And Arn, that wraps up the month of March 1988. It's amazing how instrumental you and the other horsemen were in making both Sting and Luger, my friend.
That was our job. And I feel like we're pretty damn good at our job.
And let's not forget how well Barry came off as a babyface during this time as well. Luger and Windham finally captured the gold at the Clash, and the Nature Boy helped make the man we see every day, still on every Wednesday on Dynamite, the franchise, the man called Sting. Just an amazing time of wrestling history.
Absolutely. So cool to go back and watch it with you, buddy.
Yeah, another great week with you, Arn. And next week, the hits keep on coming. It's April 1988, Arn. It's the Crockett Cup, and it's the formation of arguably the best incarnation of the Four Horsemen. Wouldn't you say, Arn? I mean, a lot of fans love it.
One of the top two, that one and Ole, I would say, were the top two.
The original and then the Barry Windham, for sure. Well, listen, tune in next week, 6:05, and find out for yourself. For the Enforcer, Arn Anderson, I'm Paul Bromwell. We'll be back again next week here on Arn. We'll see you then.